Welcome to Deep Dive. This podcast is brought to you by Liminal MarTech. Liminal is the first Portuguese company specialized in strategic consulting and marketing operations. If you want to grow your business and deliver better customer experiences with marketing technologies such as CRM, automation, and BI, go to www.liminal.pt and find out how. Ready for a deep dive into making smarter marketing decisions? Today, we're ditching the whole spaghetti-at-the-wall method and embracing the power of marketing analytics.
That's right. It's about understanding the why behind customer behavior, not just the what.
Exactly. And our guide for this deep dive is Marketing Analytics, a practical guide to improving consumer, by Mike Grigsby. You know, I was just thinking, I love how this book is packed with real-world examples.
Oh, absolutely. One of the things I find fascinating is its emphasis on uncovering true insights. It's not just about observing data.
I was actually going to ask you about that. The word insight gets thrown around a lot these days. What's the difference between a true insight and, just a random statistic?
Well, think of it this way. Knowing 92% of your customers wear jeans, that's interesting, but it's not an insight in itself. A true insight would be understanding why they prefer a competitor's jeans, what motivates that choice.
So it's about figuring out those so what behind the numbers.
Precisely. That so what is where the real marketing gold lies. Maybe those customers associate the competitor's jeans with a specific lifestyle or a certain value. That's an insight that can really inform your strategy.
Okay, that makes sense. But how do we go from, like, a pile of data points to those aha moments, those real actionable insights?
Well, that's where the book gets into some really useful techniques, starting with predictive analysis. And we're not just talking about describing what's already happened. We're talking about using data to predict future behavior, future market trends, the whole 9 yards.
So less crystal ball gazing, more data-driven forecasting.
Exactly. Imagine you're considering a price change on a product. Predictive analysis could help you estimate the impact on sales, or even uncover hidden factors that might be influencing customer churn.
Whoa, that's incredibly powerful. And it seems like, correct me if I'm wrong, but understanding your customer's behavior is crucial here.
Absolutely crucial. Everything, and I mean everything we do in marketing should revolve around the customer journey and their decision-making process. How do they search for information? What are their evaluation criteria? And how do they ultimately make purchases across all these different channels?
It's like putting yourself in their shoes, but with data as your guide.
Precisely. And once we understand those patterns, then we can start segmenting our customer base for even smarter, more targeted strategies.
Segmentation. That's about dividing your audience into groups with similar needs and behaviors.
Exactly. So instead of this generic one-size-fits-all approach, we can tailor our messaging, our offers, everything to these specific segments. For example, one segment might be highly motivated by discounts.
Right.
Whereas another segment might prioritize brand loyalty and exclusive experiences, you see?
So understanding those nuances allows us to use our marketing budget way more effectively.
Absolutely. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. The book challenges some of those traditional marketing metrics, like the classic RFM model. Have you heard of this one?
Recency, frequency, monetary value, right?
Okay.
I've definitely heard of it. And I'm ready to have my assumptions challenged here. What's the issue with it?
So while RFM can give you some basic insight into customer engagement, it often falls short in capturing the true drivers of loyalty. It's a bit like judging a book by its cover,
I see. So we need to dig a little deeper for more nuanced understanding.
Exactly. Instead of just looking at how recently or how frequently someone buys, we need to understand their motivations. Are they driven by price, convenience, specific product features, maybe even brand affinity? Segmenting based on these behavioral factors, now that paints a much richer picture.
That makes a lot of sense. Speaking of painting a richer picture, the book mentions a case study about a retail, I think it was a medical clinic chain, and they were struggling with their pricing strategy. Can you tell me more about that?
So they were stuck in a rut, you see, raising prices across the board every year like clockwork, that classic inflation bump.
The old, we've always done it this way approach.
Exactly. But here's the thing, it was backfiring. Customer satisfaction was dropping, they were losing customers left and right, and their growth, well, let's just say it was stagnant.
Sounds like they needed to shake things up a bit.
So how did analytics help them do that?
Well, they started by digging into this thing called price elasticity. It's a way to measure how sensitive customers are to price changes.
Okay, let's unpack that a bit. Elasticity is about understanding how much demand changes when you adjust the price, right?
You got it.
Yeah.
If the demand swings wildly when the price changes, it's considered elastic.
Makes sense.
But if it barely budges, then it's inelastic. And here's the key. Different customer segments, well, they can have totally different price sensitivities.
So what they assumed was this, universal truth, this idea that everyone hates price increases, wasn't actually true across the board. You hit the nail on the head. Their analysis, it actually revealed that some customer segments were incredibly price sensitive, like super sensitive, but others, they were much more loyal and willing to pay a premium for that, for the value they were getting.
So their one-size-fits-all pricing strategy was actually costing them money.
Precisely. They were able to pinpoint segments where they could strategically raise prices, without really impacting loyalty. And then on the flip side, they found other segments where targeted discounts could really drive sales.
Fascinating. It seems like this data-driven approach really gave them the confidence to make, well, bolder decisions, instead of just relying on gut feelings or assumptions.
Absolutely. And here's the best part. They didn't just theorize about it. They actually put it into practice with a test and learn approach.
So real-world experiments,
Yeah.
To validate their insights.
Yes, they selected, I think it was specific products and regions for these targeted price adjustments, and they based it all, of course, on those elasticity findings.
And what happened? Did it work?
It did. After a 90-day trial, the clinics that were using the data-driven pricing saw a significant increase in revenue, over 10% in some cases.
Wow. That's amazing. It's a real testament to the power of analytics, isn't it? It's not just about, crunching numbers. It's about translating those insights into real, tangible business outcomes.
Exactly. It's about making smarter, more informed decisions. And the book, it goes beyond just pricing, too. It explores a whole range of other really powerful techniques. For example, have you ever heard of polynomial distributed lags?
I have to admit, that one's new to me.
Yeah.
Break it down for us. What's the key takeaway there?
So it's about understanding the long-term effects of your marketing efforts. Not just the immediate impact, but the ripple effects over time.
So, like, if I launch a big campaign, it's not just about the sales spike that week, but how that campaign influences customer behavior, in the weeks and months that follow.
Precisely. Polynomial distributed lags, they help you quantify those ripple effects, which can be incredibly valuable for making, strategic decisions about where to invest your marketing budget.
That makes a lot of sense. We often get so caught up in the short term that I don't know, maybe we miss the bigger picture sometimes.
Right, exactly. And speaking of powerful techniques, the book also delves into something called Poisson regression.
Okay, another new one for me. I'm ready to learn. What's the key takeaway with Poisson regression?
It's particularly useful when you're dealing with what we call count data.
Count data, so like the number of times a customer makes a purchase or the number of website visits.
Exactly. Think about things like the number of customer transactions, the number of website visits, or even the number of responses to, say, a direct mail campaign. Poisson regression helps you analyze how those counts are influenced by various factors.
So if I'm trying to understand why some campaigns generate more website visits than others, Poisson regression could be a really helpful tool.
Precisely. It's all about understanding those relationships between different variables. The book is a great example of using Poisson regression to analyze the impact of various marketing campaigns on, the number of customer transactions.
I'm starting to see how all these pieces fit together. It's about using the right tool for the job and then understanding the story that the data is trying to tell, right? What other tools are in our analytics toolbox?
Well, the book also talks about logistic regression. It's a powerful tool, especially when you're dealing with binary outcomes.
Okay, remind me, what's a binary outcome again?
Think yes or no scenarios like buy or don't buy, subscribe or unsubscribe.
Ah, those classic marketing questions. So how does logistic regression help in those situations?
Let's say you're trying to predict which customers are most likely to respond to, let's say, a particular offer. Logistic regression can analyze customer characteristics, their behaviors, all of it, to calculate the probability of a positive response.
So it's like a superpower for targeted marketing. You could identify the most promising leads, tailor your messaging, and optimize your campaigns for better conversion rates.
Exactly. It all comes back to using data to make smarter, more informed decisions.
This is making me think about all the times, we make assumptions in marketing. It's so important to use data to validate those assumptions and really measure the impact of our efforts.
You're absolutely right. And that's something the book really emphasizes, the need for statistical testing.
Like A/B testing. seeing which headline leads to more clicks.
Exactly. We need to use statistically sound methods to ensure, we're not just guessing, but that we're actually proving what works.
So no more relying on gut feeling alone.
Right. The book talks about things like calculating the right sample size so you're not making decisions based on a tiny unrepresentative group. It also highlights the importance of having a control group in your tests.
A control group meaning like a group that doesn't receive the, what do they call it, the treatment you're testing, right? So if you're testing a new ad campaign, you need a control group that doesn't see the new ad so you can like compare results.
Exactly. That way you can really isolate the true impact of your marketing efforts. And speaking of impact, another crucial point the book makes is about accurately measuring the incremental impact of our efforts.
Incremental impact, meaning like the additional lift we get from a specific campaign or tactic, right? Not just like overall sales figures, but the actual difference our actions made.
You got it. We need to be able to confidently say this campaign increased sales by X% and know that we're not taking credit for sales that would have happened anyway.
That makes a lot of sense. We don't want to be celebrating a victory that was actually driven by something else entirely.
Exactly. The book recommends using techniques like regression modeling to really isolate the impact of those specific marketing variables.
That's incredibly valuable for proving the ROI of your marketing investments and making the case for future budget allocations.
Absolutely. It's about demonstrating the value of what we do.
All this talk about data makes me think about the whole big data trend. What are your thoughts on how the rise of big data is impacting marketing analytics these days?
It's both exciting and challenging, wouldn't you say? It opens up a whole new world of possibilities, right? With more data points than ever, we can potentially gain even deeper insights into customer behavior. But it's not without its challenges. It definitely creates new complexities. I mean, how do you even begin to make sense of it all? The book actually cautions against getting lost in the sheer volume of data, It's easy to lose sight of the strategic questions we're actually trying to answer.
So it's not just about having more data, it's about having the right data and knowing how to use it effectively.
Exactly. We need to be much more strategic about how we approach big data, focusing on extracting those meaningful insights that can actually inform our marketing strategies.
It all seems to come back to that core idea. Using data to make informed decisions, regardless of the specific data source or analytical technique.
You've got it. And the book actually provides a really helpful framework for approaching marketing analytics projects.
Tell me more about that framework. What are the key steps involved?
Well, it all starts with, clearly defining the problem we're trying to solve. What is that business question we're hoping to answer with data?
So before we even look at any numbers, we need to know what we're looking for.
Exactly. Once we have that clear objective, then we can move on to data collection, gathering all the relevant information from our various sources.
That could include things like customer demographics, purchase history, website interactions, maybe even social media activity, right?
Absolutely. And then comes the, I think, often overlooked step of data cleaning and preparation, which is absolutely crucial for ensuring the accuracy of our analysis.
So making sure the data is consistent, accurate, and free from errors.
Exactly. Garbage in, garbage out, right? Once that data is clean, we can start really exploring it to identify, patterns and trends.
So that's where the visualizations come in handy,
Mhm.
and the descriptive statistics.
Precisely. From there, we can move on to building models using those statistical techniques we've been discussing to develop, predictive models.
Like those regression models and other techniques we talked about earlier.
Exactly. But it doesn't just stop there. We then need to validate those models, make sure they're accurate and reliable before we deploy them to actually help us make those informed decisions.
So it's about being systematic and thorough, not just jumping to conclusions based on the first, interesting graph we see.
You got it. This systematic approach helps us avoid those costly mistakes, and it ensures we're really getting the most out of our data.
And speaking of avoiding mistakes, the book shares this cautionary tale about a demand estimation project for a call center. What happened there?
So this company was planning to build a brand new call center to handle, anticipated growth. They brought in this expert to forecast call volume, and they were using this really sophisticated econometric model.
Sounds like they were taking a data-driven approach. So what went wrong?
Well, the model predicted a much lower call volume than the company was expecting.
Oh no. Did they listen to the data?
Unfortunately not. They just assumed the model was wrong, and they went ahead with their plans for this big, large call center.
And what was the outcome?
Well, about a year later, they had to shut down the new call center because, you guessed it, the call volume never materialized. The data was right all along, but they didn't trust it.
That's a powerful reminder that even with the best data and the most sophisticated models, it's crucial to have that buy-in from the decision makers. Data is only valuable if it's actually used to inform action, right?
Absolutely. And this really highlights the importance of good communication. It's one thing to understand the data yourself, but we also need to be able to translate those insights for others, especially those who might not be as, data savvy.
I imagine that's where strong communication skills become really critical for marketing analysts, right?
Absolutely. The book really emphasizes this point. It highlights the need for analysts to clearly explain, sometimes complex data insights to non-technical audiences.
So it's about being a data storyteller.
Exactly. We need to translate those numbers, those charts, those tables into actionable recommendations, recommendations that can actually drive business decisions.
That makes perfect sense. Data storytelling is like a critical skill, especially in today's data-driven world.
It is. And you know what? It's not even enough to just be a good storyteller. This field, it's constantly evolving, so it's crucial to stay up to date with the latest trends and technologies in marketing analytics.
So reading those industry publications, attending conferences, experimenting with those new tools,
Hmm.
all those things are important for staying ahead of the curve.
Exactly. Continuous learning, it's essential in this field. We've talked about quite a few different analytical techniques today, but there are always new ones emerging.
It is a lot to keep up with. So for someone, feeling a little overwhelmed by all these different techniques, what would you say are the most important takeaways from the book?
That's a great question. I think the most crucial takeaway is this. Marketing analytics, it's not about blindly applying complex statistical models. It's about using data to understand your customers better, and then using that understanding to make smarter decisions.
So it's not about the tools themselves, but how we use them.
Exactly. It's about asking the right questions, choosing the appropriate analytical techniques, and then, most importantly, translating those insights into action.
It sounds like a blend of analytical skills, marketing knowledge, and just good old-fashioned business acumen.
You got it. And that's what makes this field so interesting and so rewarding. It's not just about the numbers. It's about using data to drive real business results.
And to create, better experiences for our customers.
Precisely.
This has been an incredible deep dive. Thanks so much for walking us through these powerful concepts and just sharing your insights.
My pleasure. It's been a great conversation.
And for our listeners, if you're ready to level up your marketing game with data-driven strategies, be sure to check out Liminal MarTech. They can help you harness the power of CRM, automation, BI, and more. Visit them at www.liminal.pt to learn more.
Go to www.liminal.pt if you want to know how to grow your business with MarTech.